Okay, so welcome to this session. This is called Reacting to Life. So, this is about how we react in different ways, different patterns that might pop up for us on the inside that can have an impact upon the outside as well. And the really focusing on the ways that we don't want to react to certain situations or events, people, places, and how we can really just step back from them to create a bit of awareness around these patterns that are going on inside of us and just step back and enable us to choose differently. So let's just bring it onto the first page. So just what we're going to touch upon here. So obviously the triggers, things that can trigger us, the unwanted reactions within us that we can have, our thinking and our thoughts, the different levels of thinking that we experience, our emotions, physical sensations that fire off because our buttons are being pressed, and the behaviors and the urges that we're drawn to due to the emotional and physical responses that we're having. And then we'll just look a little bit at stepping back just to see and learn how we could do things differently to get a different outcome. So let's go first of all then with triggers. So as you can see, the definition here would be a cause to a function. And if we look at this in a metaphorical way around a gun, so it's a small device that releases a spring or catch, so it sets off a mechanism, especially obviously to fire the gun. So think of the trigger as setting off a sequence of events or different processes within inside of us that happen. So just thinking now about the different situations where our buttons can get pressed, those different triggers that we can experience in life. So here's a few examples. So obviously different situations, different events, certain people can trigger us. It's usually those people quite close to us that can trigger us quite easily as well, that we react to, and especially those people that we love because we hold in high regards, we let them in. So it's potentially easier for those buttons to be pressed as well. And the same goes for us to those people as well. We can trigger others who are close to us very easily. Different places or memories can be a trigger, even dates, even other emotions can be a trigger for us. So, one emotion might trigger another emotion or a thought or even a memory. Language, maybe the tone, how somebody says something, or the words that they might use can be a trigger. And of course, different fears that we have, and just the general uncertainty and of life, really, the uncertainty of life and how it can change from one moment to the next, and just not knowing what will come next can be a trigger for us. So let's look at the next page, which is thinking and thought. So thinking is the process of considering or reasoning about something, and if we think of the thoughts of what make up the thinking, so it's like the building blocks of our thinking. So let's just take one of those triggers to use as an example. And let's go with the typical situation here of an employee who gets called in for a meeting with their boss. Let's call this employee Dave. So Dave has no prior knowledge of what the meeting is about. However, he's been triggered. And as we can see here, a number of possible thoughts that Dave might be having in a negative cycle that's, as you can see, getting quite distressing for him. So we've got obviously, what do they want? What have I done wrong? What if I get the sack? I'm going to have to find another job. I could be out of work for a long time. What will my partner say? I must work harder. I need to do more. Why can't I just be like so and so on in whatever department? Or what's wrong with me? So just a small selection of potential thoughts that Dave might be having due to this triggering situation of being called in for a meeting with his boss. And these thoughts, as well, as you might notice here, they could be categorized into different styles of unhelpful thinking. So they could be catastrophizing thoughts, all or nothing, negative filter, prediction type thinking, compare and despair, critical voice, self-blame, shoulds, musts. So all of these could be appearing in thought form, but they could also be appearing in image form as well. So it depends on how Dave is experiencing things in his mind. Now, the point here is that Dave is we could say overreacting, a reaction that's happening from a small piece of information where he's filling in the blanks for himself and making it into something that it's quite possibly not. So, of course, we've got no other background information here, but just moving into that place where we can see that Dave is having an overreaction to things. So, and it's a reaction that's not useful. And is actually quite unhelpful, as Dave would be preparing to go into a meeting with his boss. And as you can see here, there is seeming quite distressed in that picture. So you might even be thinking about different scenarios or situations that have happened to you, or maybe even recently, that are similar to this one. And within each event, we can operate from one of two levels of thinking, if we're going to just bring it down into its simplest form. So these levels of thinking, or systems of thinking, we should say, come from a concept from a book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. And we've got two levels, so two systems even. So let's look at both those systems now. We've got system one. So this is it's fast, it's automatic, it's unconscious, it's intuitive. So this is more of the unconscious mind. All of those things that we don't really have to think about, that just happen. So as we've got here, walking, opening a door, driving, etc. And of course, you've got this process of, let's say it is driving, where we need to learn how to drive first. So it's more of a conscious way of thinking first, and then it gets programmed into more of the unconscious pattern, because we've learned it and it's become that process that we don't really have to think about. So this is more of the system one level of thinking. It requires little effort. It's driven by instinct and past experiences, and as we said, it's habitual. So it's the behaviors that we don't have to think about consciously. So that's system one. And then system two. So this is more slow, it's conscious, it's logical. So it's when we're involved in a task where it requires more thinking, it requires more effort. So when we first get in that car, when we're learning how to drive, we have to really think about what we're doing. We have to go, okay, so we need to, turn the wheel, put the clutch down, etc. And, all of those things that are happening in sequence, or sometimes at the same time, where we have to really think about what we're doing. So it requires more effort, as you can see here, focused, analytical, deliberate, rational, and such things as solving problems, exercising a level of self-control, or a demanding physical activity. So this gives us more of a picture as to how our brain operates when it is thinking. So as I say, in a simplistic way, we're just splitting it down here into two levels. And sometimes it can be rational, sometimes it can be irrational and emotional. So the rational part is more of the system two, irrational, emotional is more the system one. So let's move into the next section to explore thinking's partner in crime, which is what we see as emotions. So as we can see here with the definition of emotion, so it's a strong feeling deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others, or it could be described as instinctive or intuitive feeling, as distinguished from reasoning or knowledge. So again, just tapping into that system one and system two as a description there as well. So how many different emotions can you think of right now? Maybe those faces give it away, or give some away anyway. Maybe even the sort of the core ones that we have. So let's just have a little look. So This would be, I'd say, a small selection of emotions within these examples. And we've got joy, sadness, fear, anxiety, shame, guilt, peaceful, excited, depressed, disappointed, trust, vulnerable, insecure, playful. So just noticing even what feelings come up for you within those just those words, and just noticing if you can resonate with any of those words and emotions, and if you can, then you've got that ability to tap into that feeling. You've got that ability to feel that feeling if you can recognize it. So let's just move into a little exercise now. And I just want you to just take a step back and just ask yourself the question: how are you feeling? And in the same breath, what are you feeling right now? Maybe it is one of those words you can see on the screen. Maybe your mind's just checking in with yourself. Maybe just notice where that awareness shifts to. Does it shift to the heart area? Is that where the emotions come from for you, or is it more in your head? Just notice how your mind will just check in with yourself just to see how you're feeling. And does it bring up a label, a word to describe that feeling? And just notice if you're consciously choosing to feel that way. Do you consciously choose your emotions and how you feel? Or is it more of a reaction to something? Where do they come from? Who or what influences how you feel? And if you could choose, how would you like to feel right now? So if it's more of an unconscious process that's going on, and then sort of creating that feeling automatically, just by taking the step back now, if you could choose, how would you like to feel? Again, maybe it's one of those words that you can see on the screen. And how might you bring that feeling into your experience? What would you have to do in order to start feeling that way? And just reflecting upon your daily life and how you feel throughout the day. Just notice if you are choosing those emotions, choosing those feelings, or are you being triggered into a certain emotion by certain things, people, places, events throughout the day? Or are you consciously choosing how you want to feel? So let's bring a bit more structure into all of these emotions. So as you can see here, we've got what we call the wheel of emotions, and there are many styles and different types of the wheel of emotion out there. But this is one, I would say, probably one of the most popular ones by a psychologist called Robert Plutchik. So it gives us a bit more of a framework into how emotions link in together. So as you can see, so we've got pairs of primary opposites. So the primary emotions are sitting in that second circle as we go out from the center. And we've got the pairs of primary opposites. So we've got joy versus sadness, trust versus disgust, fear versus anger, anticipation versus surprise. And as we can see, the intensity increases as you go inwards, and we've got a different label for that. And then as you go outwards, the intensity decreases. So as you can see with the pairs of opposites there, the perspective of an event could be seen in totally opposite ways, which would bring about totally opposite emotion. So depending on how you're viewing something, it can sort of fall on that continuum of a pair of primary opposite emotions. So again, just looking at that wheel of emotions and just asking yourself, how have you been feeling today? Which color do you fall into? Which label? How intense is that emotion? And just where have you been really just sitting on that wheel today? And just by calling out that emotion by its name, we get to take a step back from it and just label it as an emotion. So instead of wrestling with it, feeling uncomfortable with it, and just trying to fix it, cover it up, and get rid of it, we can take a step back and we can just notice it. And that's what I'd like you to do, is just get into that place of just saying to yourself, I'm noticing a feeling of. So I'm noticing a feeling of anger arising within me. So instead of saying in your mind, or maybe even out loud, I am angry, because when you say I am, it sort of floods the whole system. It's like you're feeling anger through every cell in your body. But if you can just go, I'm noticing a feeling of anger arising within me. Maybe even calling it out where it's coming from. Maybe it's from the stomach, in the chest, or just noticing where it is. I'm noticing a feeling of anger arising from my stomach area. All of a sudden, you bring it into that space where you're not a part of it, you're just noticing it. So it creates space between you and the emotion. So calling it out allows us to accept it. It's just a passing feeling. It's you've got that space between you and it, and therefore we become less attached to it, and we can let it pass with more ease. So just using the words can allow us to move us into that place of acceptance of the emotions that we're feeling. So now just going a bit deeper, and also I probably should just say as well, obviously you can see on there as well, we've got the secondary emotions, which are a combination of the primary ones. So you can see there on that outer rim, the combinations of the different primary emotions that we can experience as well. And again, this is theory. This is what Plutchik has come up with, and of course, different people have different theories out there. But this feels like a good model to work from when we're looking at the different emotions that we experience. So yeah, let's go a little bit deeper just to look at the other side of the coin of feelings, which is our physical and bodily sensations. So again, we've got some examples here that could also be seen as emotions as well. So again, depending on how you're viewing them, the different words, but just seeing these more of the bodily reactions that we can feel and that we're sensing within the body. So as we got here, on edge, shaking, cold, relief, upset, anxiety, even excited, frustrated, shock, hot, frightened, tired, strong, relaxed. So all different things that can really be interpreted into a physical bodily sensation that we experience in the body. And again, there's probably going to be many more that you can think of that fall into this category. So this is just a few examples. And again, just asking the question, what are you feeling in your body right now? Just allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, and just notice and just allow yourself to feel whatever's going on, but just notice if there's a label that comes up for you. And again, maybe it might be one of those words that's coming up for you. And maybe it wasn't even in your body. Maybe your awareness was all in your head and your mind, which is often the case. And that's okay. But just dipping down into your body just to notice what you're feeling. And it might just be a light sensation within the body. And recognizing that sometimes we can get so caught up in our heads that we forget to connect with our body. This is where we can become a bit stuck. This is where the brain can talk us into suppressing our feelings because it sees it sees the feelings as being too painful to experience. But in doing so, we block ourselves, our higher energy, and our flow off from expressing itself fully in the world. So let's just touch upon the process of what happens when we are triggered. So when we are triggered, it's like our button has been pressed. The alarm bell has rung, and this sets off a domino effect within the mind and body that we can call our fight or flight response, because that's what it is called. So the alarm bell rings, and our emotions automatically show their heads. So we can see emotions as the signals to the rest of the mind and body that there is potential danger or threat that is present. So negative emotions are like warning signals that let us know that something isn't right and we need to do something about this potential threat. So it sort of switches that fight or flight on and sort of propels our body into action. So we can either move away from it or we can fight it off. A positive emotion, on the other hand, gives us signals that this thing is okay, this situation's okay, or even a person is good for us, and we can move towards it. And it can give us more pleasure, less pain, help us to find more balance, and even help us survive in some way. So all the time, this level of thinking is looking at things through this survival lens, though, which is all good, but this is a limited perspective. So the fight or flight system is a super sensitive system because it needs to be, just in case there is a potential danger around us that we need to be aware of. So therefore, because of this sensitivity, false alarms can, will, and do happen often to varying degrees for all of us. And one of the key components of this system is what we call the amygdala. So the amygdala is part of the brain that processes fearful and threatening stimulus. So it activates the fight or flight in response to potential danger. It does this by filtering all of the information that comes in through our five senses into categories of either threat or non-threat. So we can look at this through a metaphor of being like our inner security office. So before anything comes in to the sort of the main building, it's like that inner security office will scan everything as either a threat or a non-threat. And of course, if it is a threat, it will send off that warning signal and propel the body into action through the fight or flight system. So, where are we? Okay. So just moving on to the next bit then, which is a bit more detail into the fight or flight system. So this is an automatic response system to a stressful or threatening event. So the amygdala communicates through the sympathetic nervous system to trigger a physiological response that prepares the body into fight or flight. And look, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, even though it's really important. So, we don't want to be we don't need to know everything, but knowing the basics of what's going on inside of us will give us a huge amount of awareness and power when it comes to these patterns that have been there for a long time in an unconscious way. So the more that we can bring them to the surface, make them more conscious, the better it is for us. And of course, the better it is for us when we've been triggered. We can learn to recognize what's going on, and we can learn to calm that system down. So pretty much we can bring them to the surface, acknowledge them, we can give thanks to them for doing the job for us, getting us to this stage in our evolutionary process, but also give new instructions in how we want to respond differently, more effectively in those once triggering situations. So a couple of more options that are unconscious or that the unconscious mind might fall into to be aware of are freeze response. You've probably heard of this one. So this can, and again, this is more, if we think more going out into nature, animals, mammals, they'll all have this this fight, flight, freeze response even more than we do, because we need that, or they need that survival instinct out there more than we do. So this would be more of a sort of a plain dead in the face of danger, which can help to avoid further harm and hopefully escape. It can also be, as the fox is sort of doing there, which is more of just a freezing still, so as not to be seen. And in humans, the freeze response, I would say, doesn't tend to work so well. I'm guessing because we don't tend to hide so well in the uncamouflaged environment. So it can lead to us to not reacting at all. No communication, no action to protect or defend oneself, becoming stuck, procrastinating, and just not moving into goals, dream, intentions that we may have in that moment. The other option that we can fall into, which might be less aware of, which is fawn or appease. And this can be seen as I would say, the character within a human trait of being a people pleaser, which you've probably heard of, or maybe you've even categorized yourself as one. Pleasing, appeasing, pacifying a threat, or what or who or is seen as a threat. So in order to avoid harm, conflict, discomfort. So that's the more of the people pleaser category. So as you may have already noticed, this whole fight or flight system is geared towards two things, which are moving you away from pain and towards pleasure. So these are our two main motivators, the continuum of pain and pleasure that we are constantly sort of moving backwards and forwards on, especially when we're in that lower level system one thinking and feeling under threat in some sort of way. So always moving you away from pain and towards pleasure. And this is more around about, it's like trying to find your relief all the time. It's programmed to always help you to find that stable and balanced state. And this is where you've got that best chance of survival. So if you're feeling calm, you're feeling stable, you're feeling balanced, it's going to be saying, okay, we're feeling good. We're in that place of surviving. We're in that surviving mode. And then of course we can sort of be okay. We're good in this space, so now we can move forwards and now we can thrive. But we need that survival first. That's that core pattern that says, okay, now you're okay, now you can move forwards. Now, the part of the brain that's linked into this path, the pain or pleasure part, and finding our balance all the time, is what we call the hypothalamus. And this is a small region of the brain that plays a big role in many functions, including releasing hormones and maintaining daily physiological cycles. So think about eating, drinking, go to the toilet, regulating such things as temperature. It's underlying and driving all of these processes and actions and many more. So it does its job by directly influencing your autonomic nervous system. So as I mentioned before, its main function is to keep your body in a stable state, and we call this homeostasis. And homeostasis, this is the body's self-regulation system. So it's adjusting to conditions that are best suited for its survival. So a good metaphor that we can use here is our inner thermostat. So when it gets too cold in a house, the thermostat switches on and heats the house up. And when it reaches a certain temperature, it switches off to cool things down. And temperature is obviously one of many automatic functions that it regulates. And of course, within the body, within the human body, within us, if we're hot, we begin to sweat. And the aim of sweating is to cool the system down. So it's always striving to find balance and a stable state by regulating different functions within the body. And this system will do whatever is necessary to give you the signals to take action to find the desired result of stability that it's looking for you, which is usually based on past evidence. So it's sort of asking the question of, okay, what's worked before that would be helpful now in achieving that state of balance and stability? However, let's remember, and we'll touch upon this again, but the past does not always equal the present. So as a reminder, let's just move back into Dave's example. and just first of all, just checking in on those thoughts again. So reminding us of those thoughts that he was having as he got triggered when he got called into the meeting with his boss. And now let's look at what emotions or physical reactions might Dave be having. So just having a little think about what we've experienced before with the those examples of the emotions and physical sensations that we can all experience, and just thinking about what Dave might be experiencing through those different thoughts that he's having there. So just to give you a few examples, it could be panic, anxiety, shame, scared, overwhelm, fear, frustration, doubt, vulnerability, insecurity, embarrassed, on edge, weak, and probably many, many more that are possibilities that Dave might be experiencing. Which, all of these feelings are trying to then move Dave into taking some sort of action from that fight or flight response in order to find his stability, find his balance, which leads us into the next section to explore, which is his behavior, or just behavior in general. So the perception of something that leads to a reaction at an emotional level, physical level, or even a thinking level, all of which then spurs us on into some form of relevant behavior or action to try and find balance or stability within the system. So as we can see here, the definition of behavior, the way in which an animal or person behaves in response to a particular situation or stimulus. But again, of course, this might not be required, as it may be a false alarm or an overreaction to something that doesn't need to be seen as a threat. So once again, it's always good to remember that the past does not always equal the present. The past is not a true reflection of what is going on now. What the current system thinks we need based upon past evidence doesn't always fit to what we actually want or need. So it's better to see it as more of a best guess or an option rather than that of the truth. So the same fits as we mentioned for when we are thinking about acting upon or striving towards our goals and intentions. So that system, one level of thinking, that unconscious part of us might get it wrong, depending on what's more of our conscious goal or intention that we want to move into. So, for instance, you might have a goal of watching less mind-numbing TV programs and a desire to read more books instead, leading you to what you're thinking is a more fulfilling life. So, um, that might be your intention, that's your goal. But when you come home of an evening after a long day at work, your mind is tired. It's more in that system, one level of thinking. It's geared towards just distressing you and finding your balance. And from its database, from its data bank, it can remember that the path of least resistance here is just to switch on the TV and to watch whatever soap opera or reality TV program might be on. So within this, okay, the job is done. You sit down, you switch on the TV, you find that level of balance. The job is done as far as your unconscious mind is concerned. However, by the end of the night, you're feeling more relaxed, but you're also back to feeling like you're wasting your time as you've reconnected with that desire of a fulfilled life equals reading more books. And now you're beating up on yourself for wasting another evening sitting in front of the TV, watching the programs. Probably you're not really interested in, but they're just there to just pass the time and just to allow you to switch off in that way. So there becomes a stark difference between what you want and what you do. So it's this old story and your new story. It's the old story that sabotages your new story, because what you're doing is the old story of what you don't really want to be doing anymore. And what you want to be doing is your new story of, reading books, living more of a fulfilled life, because that's your vision of what you want to be moving into. But you keep getting sabotaged by your old story because it's the system one level of thinking that's coming in when you're tired. So just going back to Dave once more. So let's just look at the behaviors that he might be engaging in within his world, within his situation. Just looking at what he might be doing, not doing, or even avoiding doing. Again, remembering he's having all of those thoughts, that he's been triggered through that situation, and he's experiencing those different emotions and physical sensations. And all of this is now driving him into potential behaviors of worry, biting nails, rumination, maybe having those if only thoughts that are coming up for him, seeking reassurance, maybe from others, maybe colleagues, friends, family, avoidance, maybe just avoiding the meeting if he can. Maybe having escape style thinking. He might not be running out the door as it seems to be there, but however, the escape type thinking might be coming in of how am I going to get out of this? I'm going to have to get another job. I'm going to have to do this, that, the other. And any number of different safety behaviors he might be doing in order to sort of ease those feelings of what he's got going on now. And of course, motivating himself, I need to do more, I need to be more, I should have done more. So all of these things are potentials of what Dave might be doing or not doing, based upon that cycle that's been triggered for him. So let's bring all of this together for Dave. So as we can see here from this cycle of thoughts, emotions, physical feelings, behaviors, urges, cycling inside of Dave, also starting to manifest outside of him too, is triggered through the events. As we can see, it sparks of thoughts and images, which lead to emotions and physical sensations within the body, as an outcome of that fight or flight response being triggered, and urges the body into various potential behaviors and actions that it could be doing or not doing. So all of which this gears towards that deep unconscious desire of just finding that stable, balanced state for Dave. However, without all of this, without Dave being aware of this pattern, he's just feeling all of this. He's just in the middle of all of this, just experiencing it all. And it can feel quite distressing and overwhelming without having that awareness of what is actually going on. So unless Dave takes that step back, unless he can calm his system down and seek a different, more helpful perspective, this cycle will continue. And even get worse as each part builds power and momentum from the other parts. So it's sort of that negative cycle that's feeding each area. As the thoughts increase, the emotions increase, and of course leaves Dave in a sense of panic, despair before he goes into his meeting with his boss, which is not the ideal state for him to be in. So what would help Dave here in this situation? So what could Dave do differently that would give him a different result? So again, instead of going around in circles, thinking the same thoughts, playing the same story out in his mind, which generates the same unwanted and unhelpful feelings and urge Dave into potentially unhelpful and self-sabotaging behaviors and actions, what could he do differently? So let's make this really simple and easy to remember. In fact, let's make it as easy as ABC, excuse the pun. So we've got awareness, which is the A, balance, B, connection, C. So awareness is, if you're not aware of the pattern that's playing out, then you're in it. Then you're not noticing it, you're not stepping back from it, so you're just in the pattern, which is probably where Dave is at the moment, because he hasn't got that level of awareness over the pattern. But if you can notice it, you can step back from it. In fact, as soon as you notice it, you've already stepped back from it anyway. Then you can move into finding your balance. So as Einstein once said, don't try and solve the problem from the same level of thinking that created it. So again, think about those two levels of two systems. If you're in system one, there's no point trying to solve that problem from system one level thinking, because you're just trying to solve it from that reactionary fight or flight place. So you need to find your balance first, rise up into that more logical, rational type of thinking, which is the system two, which is then going to give you a better chance to find a solution to whatever the problem might be. So build the awareness around the pattern, find your balance first, And then you can move into connecting with something that's more helpful, more serving, better feeling. So again, this usually is going to be within that system 2 level of thinking, a more rational thought maybe, or asking a better question, or even just finding a better action to take, that's going to give Dave that better better route out of that problem, and to see things differently. So a little tip here as well. So if you're struggling to find that new connection, then just go back to balance. It can be very easy to just jump forwards and go, okay, well, I know this pattern. Okay, well, I just need to find that other way of thinking, that different perspective, without finding your balance first, or without spending enough time to find that balance properly. So if you're still struggling with it, just recognize that, okay, there's probably a bit more balance that I need to find here first. So letting go of the struggle, finding your balance, because you've probably jumped ahead. And really, the more balance you find, the higher your vibration will be, the higher the vibration will rise, and the easier it will be to connect with that higher level of awareness that can give you the answers you need, the solutions that you need. Okay, so key takeaways from this session. So let's just recap on what we've learned here about the key components of the reactionary cycle that we can all fall into, including triggers, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So in its simplest form, we can boil our thinking down into 2 systems, which is system 1 and system 2. So system 1 being the quick, efficient, quick and efficient part of our thinking, which is associated with fight or flight. It can be helpful in threat-based situations, but can also be detrimental and sabotaging to our longer-term goals, and where there is when there isn't a real threat around. And I say longer-term goals, it can be goals in the moment as well. So if there isn't a real threat around, but the system 1 level of thinking is saying there is, that's a false alarm, which can obviously be sabotaging to you. System 2 is slower, but it's more focused in on rational, logical thinking, which can be helpful in working things out, solving problems, analyzing. So if there's no real threat there, then we can step back and find our balance and access that system 2 level of thinking. So look, we need both. But by having a conscious awareness of how both work, we can begin to step back, make more conscious choices around which is needed in any given moment or situation, and really start to see our thinking and thoughts as tools we can engage with and use to our benefit, instead of them just using us at an unconscious level in an unconscious way. So everything we experience is filtered through our inner security office. This is the amygdala, with all sensory information being scanned to see if there's a threat or not, in order to give instructions to switch on that fight or flight system or not. And of course, it's all in service of protecting us and keeping us alive. And this is entwined with our 2 core motivators of pain and pleasure, right? That system 1 level of thinking. And of course, our constant drive towards stability and balance, as driven by our inner self-regulation system called the homeostasis, as we learned. However, again, let's remember that there can and will be false alarms. The past does not always equal the present. So if there's no present danger, then we can learn to step back. And we can do that efficiently and effectively through the ABC approach that we learned just now, which is around awareness, balance, and connection. And of course, look, we've been on this journey with Dave to uncover his reaction to a specific situation and how that has snowballed into a cycle of fear, doubt, and self-sabotage. So as we did with Dave, I'm going to encourage you to either download the worksheet, which you should find below, linked below, or you can draw it out yourself, whichever's easiest for you, and fill out a couple of these for yourself using different triggering situations, recent situations if you can, or if not, then just choose anything that you can just explore, but just something that's bothered you, something you've been triggered by. This will help you to step back from the patterns going on inside, create some space between you and your thoughts and feelings, and see what alternative options arise for you that would give you a different result to that of the continuous cycle that doesn't feel good. So remember that the main thing here is about building your awareness over these patterns so you can get really good at spotting them when they do arise, so you can quickly nip them in the bud before they get too big and out of control. So I will leave you with that. Enjoy the exercise, and I will see you in the next